just going to give Mike a minute. I'm expecting he'll be here.
Yeah, he accepted the invite, so it should be.
Here he is.
Hey guys.
Hey Mike.
Oh.
You ready? All right, it being on or about 6:30 on July 10th, 2023, I'll call the meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission to order. This meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board and commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards a quorum. The meeting is also being broadcast live via ECAT. Can we begin with a roll call vote?
Benson, present.
Carroll, present.
Crossman, present.
Spady, present.
All right, very good. Let's start with our first order of business. Request for determination of applicability, 257 Maspog Ave.
Okay, one's coming. I promoted them, maybe. There we go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, I'm Jim. I'm one of the supervisors over at Borderland State Park, where the project's going to be happening.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Is Nick going to be coming also?
He said he would be on.
He's here. I've promoted him a few times. It doesn't seem to be. Oh, here he goes.
We can see you, Nick, but we can't hear you yet.
How's it going, everybody?
Hi.
Good evening.
Could you guys tell us a little bit about what you're proposing?
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, did you want to tell him about the project, or would you like me to?
You can start off. I'll just.
Right. So as I said, I'm the one of the supervisors over at Borderland State Park, and we're going to be working here with Nick to hopefully replace some of the boardwalks on the swamp trail in the park that have over the years they've been there for years have started to kind of rot away and kind of become decrepit. So we're hopefully going to be able to replace these boardwalks, make them new again, and hopefully kind of repair the trailhead a little bit.
Great. Nick, do you have anything you want to add?
Oh, you said it all.
Okay. Jen, any comments?
Well, they should describe the boardwalk to you.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, could you guys just tell us a little bit about the length with resource areas?
Absolutely. So the area we're in is the swamp trail. It's called the swamp trail because it is a very swampy area. The bridges that are there have been there for years, and the bridges that we're going to be replacing with it, Nick had shown me the design. He had gotten them from, I believe, Nemba uses this design as well. They've used it in the park at Borderland as well, where they'll be built in different sections. There'll be spaces in between the boards to allow sunlight to get in, and they should have minimal impact on the land. And when we will be building these, we won't be using any heavy equipment to go in or anything. It'll all be done with on foot with hand tools. So there'll be no really damage to the land.
Are you expanding the section of boardwalk that is from what exists?
As far as I know, we are only replacing it as what we have it in for,
Okay.
the current boardwalks that are there.
And is the boardwalk going to be similar to like the one on Bob's Trail?
Yes.
Yeah. Same design or close to it?
Yes. Nick, you had the schematics, correct, for the boardwalk?
Yep. It would actually be a little bit smaller because I believe the bridges on Bob's Trail are 3 feet wide. This one's going to be 2 feet wide.
Perfect.
And I guess that is a good point too, with the size of the bridge. This trail is only a foot traffic trail, so the bridge will be smaller, because we do not allow bikes or any other horses or anything larger than foot traffic down this trail.
And Nick or James, do you have a proposed timeline for when it will start?
We're hoping to start as soon as possible. This is since it's an Eagle Scout project, Nick. You do have a deadline where you have to get this in by, so we're hoping to start as soon as possible and be wrapped up as soon as possible as well.
August becomes horsefly season on that trail.
Very much so.
Jennifer, anything else?
And Nick, how high off the ground is the boardwalk?
It would be roughly 1.5 feet.
Okay, so elevated above the wetland and the floodplain.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And James, did you want to talk about the rare species habitat?
Yes, so in Borderland, we do have some rare species, some endangered species that kind of do fall in this area. So we have our resource management plan, and while this project's going to be going on, I will also provide Nick with a copy of this. It has the species that are in Borderland that are endangered in the area. And if Nick does find any of these, he can notify us, and we can notify the proper people to let them know that they're there.
Okay, and it's still a request for determination of applicability because even though it's in rare species habitat, because it meets the exemption under the Mass Endangered Species Act regulations as part of the resource management plan. Okay, so we walked the site together, seems like maybe a couple of months ago now.
Yes.
Yep. So I have no other questions. Thank you.
Any members of the commission have questions, comments? All right, I assume you guys would like to close. I should ask any public comment on this project. All right, motion to close the public hearing on 257 Massapog Ave RDA.
Second,
All right, roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spade, aye.
Motion to issue a negative determination of applicability, noting Wetland Protection Act +5, -2, and bylaw -2.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spade, aye.
All right, very good.
Those are
Thank you,
the
guys.
answers you all want.
Yep.
We'll be sending that out in the next day or two.
Awesome. Really appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks. And just for the record, for Michelle, that was Ben with the motion and Nate with the second.
All right, calling the next order of business of the Conservation Commission, 8 Water Street, Lisa Dowry, applicant Collin Civil Engineering Group, notice of intent for a proposed subsurface sewage disposal system.
So I'm not sure how Rory would put people back into the waiting room.
Oh,
So James and Nick, I'm not sure if you're able to
Yeah, should I
do
just-
that on your end.
I think there's a button here, leave. I guess maybe I'll try that.
I would do leave. My only choice is to remove, and that kicks you out of the meeting completely, and I don't want to do that. So if you would both click leave, that would be awesome. Thank
that's
you.
so funny. I wasn't aware that Rory had done that this whole time.
Yeah, I can't. I've never been able to remove them. So, well, I can remove them. I just can't get them back into the waiting room.
I'll have to ask him how he did that.
Okay, so this is civil. I'm looking for Collins, right?
Yeah. Looks like Pete raised his hand. Yep.
I don't see a raised hand, do you? If,
Yeah, he's up at the top. Let me see.
oh, just Pete. Okay,
Yep.
you didn't put his last name there. There you are. Thanks, Peter.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for bearing with us.
Good evening. Yeah, sorry about that. I just got my computer all rebooted and I had to set up Zoom again, so a couple kinks to work out, but we'll get through it. I'm gonna share the plan. If we could just confirm that you can see that.
We can see it.
Awesome. For the record, Peter Lyons with Collins Civil Engineering Group, representing the homeowner for this project. This is a notice of intent for a failed septic system repair. In the back of the property, we have a BVW and a mean high water line delineated. The project falls just outside the 50-foot buffer to both of those resources. Basically, with the, where is it? With this one, we're basically trying to balance the system between the house and the wetlands. So we do end up inside of the buffer zones. We found unsuitable soils in the middle of the yard, which, you know, potentially could have put us outside jurisdiction. We started on the side yard, did not have favorable soil conditions, and we did as we got into the back. So that's kind of why we ended up back here. Basically, we're proposing the removal and decommissioning of the existing leaching pit in the backyard and leaching area indicated by the rectangles. We're proposing a new gravity system with a 1,500 gallon septic tank to a 20 by 44 foot leaching field. We've provided a sedimentation control around the project, shown as the red line. That is a 12-inch diameter filter mitt. We have our details for that on the plan. Additionally, we show a dewatering location outside of the 100-foot buffer to the wetland, and a soil stockpile area adjacent to that. Site access for this project will be coming in off of the Sunset Drive side of the driveway, wrapping around the left of the house and going out back. So the sedimentation control line should protect, you know, the existing resources as it's shown. What else? We have some notes of debris to be removed in the backyard. We're also proposing 3 conservation markers to be installed at the time of construction. Those are along the existing tree line on the right and the middle, and the second one's placed into the wood line at the 50-foot buffer. If there's any questions from the commission, I will take them now.
I think you addressed all my questions. Jen, do you have any comments?
Just a couple.
Please.
So Peter, the septic system itself is more than 50 feet away from the wetland, but some of the grading is closer than 50 feet, correct?
That is correct. The leaching field at its closest point is 56 feet from wetland flag 4. Due to the high groundwater out here, we do have a slightly elevated system. So the proposed grading will be approximately 45 feet from the resource. That will be contained within the limit of work.
Okay, and so you're closer than 50 feet. Do you want to discuss the waiver request? You have one?
Yeah, so we are working within 50 feet. We're requesting a waiver for that. Let me pull it up. Just to run through it quickly, we are working within the 50-foot wetland buffer. Efforts to avoid alteration, as mentioned, we tried going in the front yard. We didn't have favorable conditions. efforts for minimizing the impacts. It's in an existing lawn area. Returning to lawn, there will be no introduction of impervious surfaces associated with the project. As far as benefit to the public interest, as mentioned, it's an existing failed septic system adjacent to resource areas. So the upgrade of the failed septic system in itself will be a benefit to the public. If there are any questions or concerns with that.
No, just the last comment is the marker out in the middle of the woods is not really practical. So during pre-construction meeting, we can move that closer to the garden.
Okay, yeah, I think
I
that,
don't know why, even though it's the 50-foot, there's no reason to put it in the middle of the woods. No one will ever see that there. So we can just move that during pre-construction meeting.
and then we can pick it up and show it on the as-built, so.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Comments from members of the commission?
None for me.
Comments from members of the public? Seeing none, Peter, I assume you guys want to close this?
Yes, please.
All right, motion to issue a order of conditions and permit for work for 8 Water Street.
Second.
Just close the hearing first.
Should close the hearing first. You're absolutely right. Motion to close the public hearing for 8 Water Street.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Speedy, aye.
And now we'll go back to my last motion. Motion to issue a order of conditions and permit for work for 8 Water Street.
Crossman, second.
Crossman with the second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Speedy, aye.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, and if I could quickly ask, do I get to stick around for the COCs later? I believe at least one of those was continued. I lost the agenda, sorry.
I'm flipping through it right now.
I think Foundry Street was on there and 520 Foundry maybe.
Yeah, and 105 Washington. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
There'll be discussion. That's up to you if you want to.
Yeah, I'll try to stay tuned in. That's fine. All right, I should be available if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did we figure out how to remove Peter?
I was told I just gotta leave.
Yeah,
Leave and then come back.
There's no option for me to push, so we'll have to ask everybody to please leave.
Calling the next order of business, 39 Vineyard Place, proposed addition to a house. ODA.
Craig, is Jonathan Spencer with you?
Him and his wife Erin should both be joining.
Okay, then they have their hand raised, so I'm going to promote them.
So I can share screen while they're coming on.
Thank you.
Hello, we're here.
Hey,
Hi, everybody.
how's it going?
Great.
Not what I wanted, sorry. I have a little trouble finding the how to get to the file.
Take your time. As you can see, we're also having Zoom issues tonight.
Usually it comes right up on what I have. But
I have Zoom issues every day. It was crazy, that last one that we were just looking at. For some reason, I know it said Water Street, but I was looking at the plans because I was just sitting here and it said Sunset Drive. And I thought it was Sunset Drive. That's where I was born, in this town. So I was just having this like very I was like, 9 Sunset Drive, you kidding me? I was born there. And then I was like, Water Street, and I was all thrown off. Anywho, side story.
Is it possible for you to share screen, Jennifer? I can't seem to get at the file. The folder I have, it's not giving me options.
I don't have your plan pulled up, Craig.
Hmm. Okay. It's showing you the folder, but not the.
So that happens to me sometimes. If you click on the plan that you want to show,
Yeah.
see if that works. Sometimes I have to close back out of it and then the next time it shows up. See if that works for you.
It's showing me the folder, but I don't want to show you my folder. Assume you don't see that, right?
No, but click on the plan that you're trying to do. Your plans have to be open before
it is
you try
open.
to share them. Yeah.
Yeah, the plan is open.
Okay.
That might be it. You see that?
Yes.
Yes.
I was trying to pull them up through Permitas. Taking me a minute.
So
Let me see what you have.
Okay, so you see this plan on the screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. It don't seem like I can zoom around on it though. So this is 39 Vineyard Place. It's at the corner of North Main Street and Vineyard Place. The house was built in 1995. This shows the overall view of the entire property. It's 4.3 acres with a floodplain and a seasonal stream running through the southerly half of the property. The house is up near Vineyard Place in the northerly corner. And the proposed construction is all within that. Brad Holmes of Environmental Consulting and Restoration flagged the BVW that's adjacent to the rear property line. Let me try to pull up the second plan. I'll have to open that one.
I have it too, Craig, if you need me to share, I certainly can.
Okay, I think it's here now. You see that now?
Yes.
That's it.
Okay, so, excuse me. So the purpose of the project is twofold. One is to add on to the existing house. You have the 2-car garage over here with the driveway coming in off Vineyard Place. You have the existing house with a small bump out in the back, and then there's a deck sitting right here where we're showing a proposed addition. So the walkout basement that comes out underneath that deck. So the intention is to add a third bay to the garage in this corner here. Take off the deck and make this area a living space in the house, 2 stories tall. Excuse me. And then over here we have on the second floor, or it's first floor from the front yard, but from the backyard raised up, is an existing window that would be converted into a door that will lead off to a deck. And then off the deck, we're coming down onto a proposed patio, a paver patio in this area. So if I can zoom in. The other purpose of the plan is to create more usable area in the backyard. Presently, this area here, we have a driveway that comes off, attaches to the garage, obviously, but it's up at elevation 168, where the walkout is at 161. So we have a 7-foot drop coming across. So it's sort of usable on top, but you come out of your basement, you have this slope that comes around like this with a existing stone wall underneath the deck at walkout level. And then on this side, another stone wall. So this small area we're showing, this proposed cul-de-sac is basically the usable area. And then there's the existing boulder wall that they used when they constructed the house to hold up this area of the yard. Over here on the neighboring property, existing drainage easement. That boulder wall and the soil they retain is to part of the drainage design, I assume. And then on the easterly property line here, we have a stone wall, but running parallel to the property line is a 20-foot drainage easement. At first, we didn't think this was actually active, but there is a 8-inch SDR 35 pipe that comes in from the corner of North Main Street. I don't believe any water ever goes through there, but it is part of the drainage system for Vineyard Place. Unfortunately, the town doesn't have any record of what was done at the time of construction of the easement, but that pipe is sitting there. So what we'd like to do is expand the yard by adding on to these 2 building additions, and then from the corner of this proposed 2-story walk addition, we'll have a retaining wall. So we can take this slope and bring the 161 to the base of the stairs, creating more of a usable area in this portion of the yard. Over here with the addition of the 1 garage bay 12 feet wide, we would be adding, I think it's 417 square feet of pavement. And partly because of the way this drains now, it all drains out to the road, and we have this existing drainage easement with a pipe underneath, so we don't want to put the original design we had showing some type of drainage, like a small basin in there, but then we'd be on top of that pipe to collect the water. So the intention is to let that drain the way it normally drains now to the street drainage. The Spencers would like to take down these trees, which are just outside the 100-foot buffer. If you've been out there, there's a row of burning bush, and then there's 4 pine trees and an oak tree in this area that'll be where the proposed driveway will be, so they'd like to take down those trees. And on the westerly side of the house, they have about 20 feet to the property line, and you have a row of pine trees that get progressively larger as they get towards the front of the house. So from a 6-inch white pine to a 24-inch white pine, they'd like to remove all of these. It blocks the sunlight to the house. Some of them are outside of the 100-foot buffer. Pine trees create problems with roofs, with siding, and it would also give them more usable space here where we're proposing this paver patio. The other 2 trees that we'd like to take down are, this is the 50-foot buffer zone from the BBW, which is our limit of work. Presently, the lawn is this sort of jagged line right here where the stump is. We'd like to expand it to the 50-foot so they have a little bit more usable space, as we noted. So there's 2 trees that fall, this 10-inch beech is about 55 feet from the wetlands, and then this 16-inch oak is about 52 feet from the wetlands. I know Jennifer had asked that we show on the plan that they'd be topped at 12 to 15 feet and left as wildlife snags, standing snags. The owners would like to remove those right to the ground. As noted, we do have 4.3 acres of land that is not being, we're using about maybe half an acre of property. So they have about 3.5 acres of land that's wooded. These 2 trees, they would just like to remove to the ground to give them more of a usable space in this area. And there's also an existing boulder that was left here. It's about 5 feet diameter. It's just at the 50-foot buffer. We just like to remove that at the same time. So this would be the existing grade at this, where the patio is proposed around 163. We would leave it at that elevation and have a couple of steps down to the 161. And like I said, over here we're at 168.5 with the driveway. And we put a wall at 165, so a slight drop, and then have a retaining wall with steps down to the 161. So this area would become more usable to the owners and their children. The roof water is designed for the garage and the house addition to come into this Caltech recharge system. It's the field drain system, which is 8 inches high, or 8 inches tall with 6 inches of crushed stone. It's about the smallest system we can find that allows us to remain over 2 feet above the groundwater found at the elevation of the wetlands. So pretty much this backyard is already lawn, and we'd like to just improve the conditions of it and make it more usable and keep it as lawn. We are showing, I think this, I'm sorry, this is the plan prior to the one that I revised for Jennifer. We are showing 4 conservation markers at the 50-foot buffer, which would be our limit of work. One over here under these trees, one in this area where we'd like to take down the trees, one over here, and one at the property line. If the commission has any questions.
Yeah, so a lot going on these plans, just so that I understand the project. So adding a bay to the garage, taking an existing porch, turning it into an addition, adding a deck off of what seems like a living room with a patio, and then you have a Coltex system to deal with all the runoff from, or the additional roof area from the impervious surface added to the site. All that correct so far?
Yes.
And then could you just walk me through one more time, because it's a little bit unclear, the trees that you're proposing to be removed?
Well, these pine trees here on the west side of the property.
So all of the pine trees on the west side?
All of these pine trees.
Yep.
There's a group of, I think they were cherry, they're right at the 50-foot, so we leave those in place. They're on top of the slope. You have this stone wall that's out there, and there's a 10-inch beech right up against the stone wall, and then there's this 16-inch oak. These other trees we were hoping would fall outside the 50, that's why I showed them, but they obviously don't. So we're looking to remove these 2. There are some stumps that were trees that have come down through the storms over the years, and the stumps are in place. We like to remove those at the same time. And then when you come over here, starting down here, there's a small boulder right there. Right behind there is that the drainage pipe comes out. From that boulder, there's a row of burning bush. Those would stay in place. And then right from the 100-foot buffer to the driveway, there's 4 white pine trees and an oak tree.
Okay.
And new pavement for the driveway
New pavement for the driveway, correct.
and the retaining wall.
Oh, yes, retaining wall.
And the retaining wall is right at the edge of pavement?
No, the retaining wall is here at the edge of.
Yep. Yep, I see that now.
The proposed pavement is up here,
Okay.
just enough.
And so everything except the removal of the 2 trees close to the 50-foot is within existing lawn?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Jennifer, do you have questions?
Just the compost and the brush that needs to be removed from the wetland boundary.
Correct. She did ask. I did put that on the plan as a note that obviously brush and leaves have been building up in the 50-foot. If you've been out there, it's pretty much exposed rock all over the place. So they've been using it as just an area they have a small fireplace, circle of stones, and then brush and such has been thrown in there. So that would have to be cleaned out. And noted on the plan, the final revised plan is that further future dumping of that is not allowed.
Jennifer, was that all you had?
Yeah.
Any members of the commission have questions or comments about this?
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah.
Is the beech tree relatively a healthy beech tree, or is that just is that one dying off? Just out of curiosity.
Based on the looks of it, I would think it's relatively healthy, but
Just it's a shame that we're to get rid of a beech tree right now, where we're watching many beech trees kind of dying of a very bad fungal infection. It's causing that. I mean, you can see it everywhere right now in the woods in Easton. It's a pretty big tree for many animals there, and if anything, I would like to at least see it tall. I don't want this, I would not like to see it get ground down to the ground. I think that's a real poor waste of a good tree. But I really don't, I wouldn't like to see that tree go down. I think that, especially of all the trees, it's a very important tree. If you don't mind me ask, the neighbors, or you guys, do you guys see a lot of turkey over where you are?
No, nope,
So-
nope.
I was just saying, I know in that area there's quite a few, and it's just, those white pines are just a good roosting spot for turkeys and for them, safe for their habitat, and removing so many is just kind of a concern. It's just, it's a lot of being so big, being so high up in the canopy. That's a huge safety net for many birds, and especially turkeys, especially now with babies. So, just a concern. There's a lot of trees. Maybe Ben, if we think about some new planting, something to a little bit of a give back.
Yeah, I think as an RDA, we're kind of limited in what we can and can't condition. Kind of my view of this is, do I love seeing the beech tree go? No, but I think it's a well-designed backyard system that's done a lot to try to minimize an impact on the wetlands which are behind it, and I think quite considerable. It's a 4-acre lot. I do get your point about the pine trees, but I think realistically, from a landscape standpoint, you're going to wind up losing those ones. I've certainly seen turkeys over there.
So the existing boulder wall isn't changing. There's no grading that's changing around the boulder wall. That's sort of
No,
it's defining where the beech tree is, though. So if you're not going beyond the boulder wall, then removing the beech tree may not really be that necessary.
do you want to speak to that, Jonathan?
Sure, absolutely. So the three, I'll call it, there are 3 trees in that area. One of them is denoted by the stump that's there. It fell a couple of years ago. Luckily it hit our deck and did significant damage. There's a huge tree. These are big trees, and they're really close to my house. If these trees were to fall, I don't want to have that happen again, what happened. And I have 3 children, and I'm really trying to, I appreciate, Ben, what you said. We have spent over a year plus, maybe a year and a half, designing this and talking about this and thinking about this. And I've spent every penny that I have to try and do this with the most consideration possible. We have a really large lot, 3.5 acres that I haven't seen most of it, if I'm being honest. I don't, the woods are thick and they are deep, and we don't go back there. So I was really trying to, as much as I humanly possibly could, create a little bit of flat land for my children to go out in the backyard and play. And I was really hoping that those 2 trees at that marker could be taken out. The other tree fell. Those are the 2 trees that are the most concerning to me as a father, for my house, for this investment that I'm putting into my home. I mean, Easton is where I was born and raised. I've been here my entire life. My sister lived down the street. My parents lived down a few doors further down that. This is where everybody is for me. So, I'm asking for that to be in consideration, and I'm happy to answer more questions about anything, obviously.
So, Jonathan, just so you know what we're talking about, and this may have been explained to you, with an RDA, we're kind of stuck between yes or no, right? We don't get to condition what does or doesn't happen on it. And I understand your concerns. Does any other members of the commission have comments or opinions on this, one way or another? Al, Nathan?
The plan as it is seems okay to me.
Mike, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, do you want a condition that we don't maybe chop that beach all the way down, or do you want to just see it down? I don't know, I mean, maybe,
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't know a lot about spiking trees, and it seems a little bit. I mean, in this condition, I think I'd rather just see them get what they want back here in relation to that piece.
okay.
I'll move that.
Okay, and any comments from members of the public? All right, seeing none. Motion to close the public hearing for 39 Vineyard Place.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Spadey, aye.
Motion to issue a negative determination of applicability for the request for determination of applicability at 39 Vineyard Place, noting a +6 under the bylaw, -3 under the bylaw. I'm sorry, +6 under the Wetland Protection Act, -3 under the Wetland Protection Act, positive, and a -3 under the bylaw. I can do my best to repeat that if that's helpful.
Crossman, second.
Thank you very much. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Spadey, aye.
Hey, thank
Very
you.
good.
Jennifer, should I revise the plan to remove the note about topping the trees? Is that what we decided?
You could do that, yes.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you all very much. Thank you.
Calling the next order of business of the Conservation Commission, 102 Eastman Street. Notice of intent for improvements to a liquefied natural gas storage facility.
You're not muted, but we can't hear you, Peter.
There we go. Sorry. Yeah, these headphones don't always kick in right away when it starts. Can everyone see my screen?
We can see it.
Excellent. Let me get. Oh, that just go away. Sorry. Apologies. 1 second. There we are. Okay. And there we go. All right, sorry about that. For the record, my name is Peter Backus. I'm an environmental scientist with Ty and Bond here on behalf of the applicant, which is Hopkinton LNG, which owned by Eversource. They own the facility, the liquefied natural gas facility over on Eastman Street, and this is an NOI we're submitting for improvements at the plant. So just a little bit of an introduction. The plant is located at 102 Eastman Street, which is on the out in South Easton, right on Route 106 there near the Mansfield town line. So just down the road there from the Target, the TJ Maxx, and Route 123 intersection. As you can see in this aerial here, the facility is just to the south side of the road where the dot is. And so a little bit of an overview of the existing facility. It's a liquefied natural gas storage, which is just compressed gas. It's down a very cold temperature for storage. Trucks come in, fill the tank, it goes into the distribution system for the town. So at the moment, the entrance is that paved area across from the budget rental across the street. We have that paved area there. The trucks come in. There's a control house in the trees back behind the trees in the center of the cul-de-sac there. And then the rest of the facility is a concrete containment, which also acts as a little bit as a stormwater area we'll talk about further down. And so that's what's there today. The equipment's somewhat outdated. The facility's been around for a while, so Eversource is looking to put some money into improving this, making the facility more modern, more reliable to keep a constant supply to the community. So to do that, they are proposing a few new buildings to be built on site, as well as support facilities. So I'm going to divide this into two portions. I'm going to have the eastern portion, which is going to be the control building with the septic, maintenance building, the driveway, parking lot, and bioretention basin. And then on the western side of the property, which is where we have our resource areas, we have a transformer and generator pad, as well as an electrical building going in. There's the existing LNG tank there on the south, just for reference. So just a little bit of background on that. The control building will have the controls, as it's named, for the facility, new modern control room, meeting rooms, offices, and then restrooms for the facility to support the facility with, which is why they're requesting a new septic system. Maintenance building for parts, working on the facility, things like that. And then 37 space parking lot to support the staff for these buildings, along with the bioretention basin. And I'll go into each of these more in depth, but for the stormwater system on that side. On the eastern portion, the electrical building controls the electricals for the facility. It does need to be somewhat near the tank, but also at a distance. So keep it in proximity to what it's controlling, but also keep a safety distance for the electrical equipment from the natural gas. And then the transformer and generator, backup power, as well as the transformer for that and the power to the facility. This is that existing cul-de-sac under the control building label too, just for reference. So also on this plan, and this will come up again on this plan, this is the 50-foot buffer coming down along the labels, the 100-foot buffer to, these are to a wetland and intermittent stream that comes through the electrical building. And then this is the 200-foot riverfront area. So just to note, everything here around the building, the electrical building's on basically the existing fence line over here. So everything from the electrical building to the west is already paved area and developed as part of this. So Ty and Bond went out in 2021 and did wetland delineation for the resource areas. This is what they found around the facility. We have one inland bank. There's the intermittent stream you can see that comes in from under a culvert in Easton Street, and then down the BVW here and flows off to the south into the wetland complex. There were two separate BVWs found. One is this one that comes along the stream out to the west of the parcel. And then to the south of the facility, there's just one large wetland complex that was a little bit outside the investigation area, so it does break up here, but it is one large wetland to the south. As I mentioned, there's the intermittent stream here that the bank is a part of. There's land subject to flooding, which is the light blue line here coming in, which is going to be outside of this project. It is currently outside the limits of the existing facility as it is, and we're not proposing work on the south side. And then the buffer zones. The 200 foot's missing from this one. We saw it on the previous drawing, but this is the 50 and the 100 foot of the buffer zone drawn over the facility. So as you can see, the 100 foot even overlaps a little bit into this facility, but the 200 comes within this developed area where we're proposing to work. Of note, where we are working is going to just be that 100 foot buffer zone and that 200 foot riverfront area. Nothing within the 50 feet, the first 50 feet of those two. And these are those, only the 100 foot buffer zone is subject to the Wetland Protection Act. The rest are under the Easton local bylaws. So these are going to be our proposed impacts as part of this. So we're looking at about 10,150 square feet of resource area alteration. Again, nothing within the first 50 feet. We are looking at a majority of the work within the 50 to 100 foot range of the buffer zone. Again, partially already developed. And then 1,050 feet within the rest of the riverfront area from the 100 foot to the 200 foot zone. Though, as I said, there is more work beyond this, but it's an already developed area that's already pavement, already impervious surface as it is. So only the work in the 100 foot buffer zone subject to Wetlands Protection Act, as I mentioned, and then the type 1 intermittent stream under the local bylaw gets that 200-foot riverfront area. It's a type 1 underneath the local bylaw as a headwater stream going into forested wetlands. It doesn't fall under the Wetland Protection Act because it had a very small drainage area and stream stats, and it is mapped as an intermittent stream on the USGS. So this work is going to require a couple of waiver requests. One being the riverfront area, as I said, a lot of it is already developed, so we're already within the performance standard setbacks that exist here. So we minimized as much as we could in this area in the design to not impact this area as much as possible. And then the electrical building, we're putting it there because it does this. It needs to be in proximity to the equipment it serves, but it also needs to have a safety setback. Other areas within the facility this wasn't feasible. If you put the electrical equipment too close, it needs to have these high classifications and safety standards that there are parts there that aren't even made. They may be impossible to get in that type of electrical classification. And then in some other areas, there's some future safety measures proposed, such as a fire water building, which would provide additional additional water for pumping in case of a fire. And we don't want to put the electrical building there at the moment because then you would have to, there wouldn't be a spot to put that safety building in the future. As well as it also is somewhat far away from the equipment, would be disturbing a little more, and it would be putting it further away from the equipment in which it serves. We're also looking for a waiver for the ACEC. We are within the Canoe River Aquifer. And so to address that, as far as the aquifer water quality concerns, right now we have the new stormwater management system that would go in with this, and I'll talk about these in the next 2 slides. But the new stormwater management system, with where we are paving, we're going to decrease the rate of water that's going into the buffer zone that currently runs across the parking lots and into the buffer zone. So we're going to have less water shooting off into the buffer zone at a more natural rate now, and it's also going to be of better quality because it's not picking up sediment and contaminants, anything off the pavement or off of Eastman Street that normally that flow into the facility at the moment. We're also treating everything else on the eastern side of the facility with the new buildings and parking lot. That's going to be treated through the bioretention basin. So the water going into the aquifer and infiltrating in is going to be of a better quality than we currently have at the moment in the existing part of the facility. And just for the waiver, we're saying that the overriding public benefit here is that we're going to enhance the reliability of the natural gas public utility Easton. Having this upgraded equipment, this more reliable equipment, is going to allow the community overall to have to benefit from a more reliable public utility and have that gas, especially here in some of these harsher winters we've had. So just to kind of go into some specifics here with the stormwater and the resource area impacts, I'll start on the eastern side with the new buildings. So we'll have the new control room building and the new maintenance building. They'll require a septic system to be built to the south of the control room building here. There is all those permits being filed separately and with the other parts of the town government. We're going to have to the north and I guess east of the parking lot here, we're going to have 2 sediment forebays and 1 bioretention basin. So the runoff being collected is going to settle sediment in the sediment forebays, and then the water will infiltrate in the bioretention basin cleaner. Of note, the new buildings will also have roof drains that are going to go straight to the bioretention basin. And that keeps the water coming right from the roofs. It doesn't collect anything, running off across the parking lots, across the stone, the lawn and all that. And it keeps that water clean directly into the bioretention basin. A nice low impact design there. All the work on this side is outside of wetland resource areas. We do not have any, there were no wetlands located within 100 feet here, no streams within 200 feet. So this whole area is mostly about the stormwater design and the septic concerns. So on the western side of the site, then we're talking about the new electrical building being built here, plus the transformer and natural gas concrete pads and the generator and transformer that go on those pads. To accommodate these, we are going to have to remove an area currently wooded. The existing fence line roughly runs halfway through the building, up through like the pads here, and this is almost the existing fence line here to the north. We're going to have to grub and remove about, I think it's 9,000 square feet of trees. So to accommodate the security fence and this perimeter fence here, so these buildings can be secured, this area can be secured. And then within that, this darker line along the pavement is curbing, and that's going to keep the water into the tree.
Here.
Oh, sorry.
I apologize, I don't mean to interrupt you. Can you just tell us what buffer zone we're looking at right here?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No worries.
This is the inner 50 foot here on the left.
Got it.
The middle dash line is the 100-foot buffer zone, and the right is the 200 foot. Yeah,
Thank you.
Should have highlighted those up there.
Just squinting to see it.
Yeah, sorry, it's hard to get a good screenshot that big. So we'll be grubbing mostly within the 50 to 100 foot range, or sorry, completely within the 50 to 100 foot range there, and then a little bit in the 100 to 200. The curbing will keep the stormwater directed within to the existing stormwater system over here, and the rest of the curbing will allow the water to infiltrate, allow the water to run off into this new area that will be seeded and loamed following the work. So the majority of the work that's going to be done in this area is a new building, 2 concrete pads, and then there's a little bit of area here that isn't currently paved, such as this half of the transformer pad and generator pad, and a little bit to the south will be new pavement. Other than that, this whole area that you see in this kind of hatching shading, will be impervious surface again and restored to herbaceous veg after, as well as the planting of a few trees along the fence line for privacy, noise concerns, and things like that. Actually, I should note on the last slide as well that this area around the bioretention basin and around the driveway will also be a conservation seed mix, as well as a conservation seed mix within the bioretention basin, and some trees planted, again, mostly native trees. There are a couple ornamentals in there for looks, to keep and for noise barriers and privacies for certain growth. A little side product of this as well. There is an existing access road where the driveway comes in. And that goes to a cell phone tower, telecommunications tower next to the facility. We will have to, for security concerns, that road will have to be routed around the new fence. So there's going to be a new curb cut, a couple hundred feet to the east, and that will be with a gate. That will be a new access road to the tower and tie into the existing one. And then the existing road here will become part of the parking lot. Oops, sorry, there we are. So I mentioned the restoration a little bit, but this would be the planting plan. As I mentioned here, we have the new trees going in. All of the shaded areas will be still pervious surfaces with seed and loam with a conservation mix, maintained as open herbaceous vegetation, and stabilized post-construction. So just to summarize, we're modernizing the LNG facility to ensure continued reliability of the natural gas utilities to the community. We're maintaining that 50-foot no disturb buffer at the moment, and limiting the new alteration to the least extent we possibly can. The proposed work's only going to occur within buffer zone and riverfront area, and we already have that partially developed in the existing facility. And then stormwater management systems are going to treat more of the runoff at the site, reducing the rate and increasing the quality of the water to the buffers. So we're not impacting any wetlands directly. We're not expecting to impair any of the habitat functions or the water quality of the ACEC. We still have that very large wetland and forested area around the site that's going to keep both privacy and habitat and ecological function relatively intact for the whole area. And with that, I'll take any questions. We have a few other folks here from Eversource, as well as folks from my company who are on the stormwater side and septic side. If you have any questions specific to that, I can field any wetland resource and permitting questions.
That was a lot.
Yes.
Great job keeping it succinct. I think would you mind pulling up the slide that just shows the overall plan?
Yep, actually I have there we go, one right there separate.
Perfect. How old is the existing facility?
That's a question for.
It's okay. It's not. That's kind of just my own personal curiosity. I've lived here my whole life, and I don't think I knew that this place existed, which may be by design. Are we adding staff to the site? It looks like the way it says doesn't seem like there's manned buildings, and now we're adding them. Could you speak to that a little bit?
I actually want to jump in. I'm Jennifer Pataro with Eversource. There's a few people that are on right now that would be best to answer some of these questions. If you could promote them, James Blackburn.
Absolutely.
Also Cheryl Kosgarten and Tim Graves.
Thanks.
Just so we can best answer your questions.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
My name is Jim Blackburn. I'm the manager of LNG Engineering and Technical Services, so thought I could step in and try to address some of the questions.
Please. So I guess the question that I have before you guys is just, are we changing the amount of, I guess, staff members that'll be here on a regular basis, and how does that impact wastewater management?
Yeah, so as you're maybe aware, Eversource purchased this facility and 7 others from Columbia Gas back in October of 2020, I believe it was. And as part of that purchase, we committed to the Department of Public Utilities that we would reinvest in the facilities to bring them up to kind of a modern state, improving reliability, safety, and maintainability of those facilities. We had previously been doing this with our other legacy facilities that we owned as part of the NSTAR gas distribution systems. So at this site, we currently utilize this site to maintain another facility in Brockton and also in Marshfield, Mass. And so currently the staff essentially works out of their vehicles at this site. So yes, our goal is to construct this modern control building. It's very similar to a control building we built in Acushnet, Mass. At one of our other facilities that was built around 1968, very similar to this site. We will continue to really have really one operator on site typically to run this 24 hours a day. And then during the day shifts, Monday through Friday, we do have some other technicians and staff that will operate or already operate at this site. However, they'll be now located within this building. So we don't anticipate the overall kind of staff count to increase significantly at this site for kind of a sustained duration, but they'll have this location to do their kind of morning briefings, get assigned their work, and then head out into the other field locations from here. So we'll probably go up to maybe at the most any given day, 6 employees Monday through Friday. But that's really not much different than what we have today. But certainly the building square footage is larger than what we have, and that probably jumps out at you. But it's really consistent with just modernizing the facility and trying to move our folks further away from kind of the process area, which currently kind of in the center of the screen, there's a building, marked control building, which really isn't fit for purpose for housing the staff currently. That's long-winded. I hope that addressed you.
No, yeah, it does. And let me just say, I think the word modernization is a great one for this. I'm just trying to get a feel for the scope and how it'll impact things. But I think the design looks a lot better than what's there. Is there currently a stormwater management plan in place at this facility? Do we have detention basins aside from the
I don't
in the middle of it?
believe so. I don't know if Jennifer's on, but I don't believe we do. And if you were to look at the aerial photo, when you saw it, you saw that large containment area to the, I guess that's the south or southwest of the tank. That is not containment for stormwater. That's specific to LNG. Now, this site originally was actually designed to have multiple LNG storage tanks that were never constructed. So that's much larger than we would traditionally see for just a single tank. Now, we have no intentions of expanding the site. We have quite a bit of property around here, but we have no intentions of expanding this. As you are aware, there's all kinds of wetlands around the property. So we've kind of moved past that idea. That wasn't really something that we are looking for here. But that large containment is really solely for LNG containment, and there's really no other stormwater infiltration or containment basins on site.
Now, I'm going to ask a question that I'm sure you guys get asked all the time, and it's going to reveal my ignorance of how natural gas works. Procedures and protocols in the event that there were to be a leak, would it have any chance of impacting the wetland resource areas? And what happens?
So LNG is fairly unique. Folks don't recognize. I grew up right next to a facility, our Acushnet facility, didn't know it existed. We have two other, my boss and another superintendent in the group both live right up the street from this facility, didn't necessarily recognize that it was there until we purchased the company. LNG basically natural gas that's been cooled down to negative 263 degrees Fahrenheit, at which point it turns into a liquid. So within that storage tank, it's stored at atmospheric pressure. It's not compressed. It's basically at 0 pounds pressure. And that tank is one big thermos, and we just keep that inside of there at that negative 260 degrees Fahrenheit. If LNG was to spill, it's non-toxic, non-corrosive, and due to the temperatures, it'll basically begin to vaporize until it's all vaporized, which would take a significant period of time. But over time, the heat from the ground and the air and the atmosphere would warm that LNG up, and it would vaporize and dissipate into the atmosphere. So as far as like a groundwater containment or impact in the wetlands, we would not expect that, certainly with the containment at the site. That would be all fully contained within the storage containment or within the spill containment. And then over a period of time, it would evaporate into the air. Now, certainly that's emissions concern, but as far as a groundwater, we don't have that concern.
Yeah, we've had situations where a residential oil tank has wreaked havoc on wetlands on multiple times. So that's kind of where that question comes from. Jennifer, I'm sure you have some comments.
I do have a couple. The plans that we received, the wetland flag numbers are actually really hard to read. So if that could be brightened a little bit in a revised set. We also need to include the 100-foot buffer that's in addition to the other buffers you have there due to the ACEC. That's according to our bylaw. So we need to update those plans for that. Stormwater management will be reviewed by a peer reviewer. We've already started that process. I saw the waiver for the ACEC, but I didn't see the one for the riverfront area. That's something you guys submitted, right?
So we had both on the local waiver forms. Do you want the narrative kind of covered both? Do you want me to separate it out into 2 separate forms?
They're supposed to be separate, yes.
Okay. Yep, can do that.
The draft SWIP, thank you for providing that. It's better if it's on the EPA template though, if you're able to do that.
So just a note on that one, it is in the current EPA template with our company stuff added to it, but it does match the current standards and the template of the EPA. But as far as formatting and where it goes, it's just got our font and our logo in places, if that's okay.
It is preferred to be on the template. Otherwise I have to take out the template and your document and compare each and every page. So if you're able to do that, that would make things go a whole lot faster.
I'll pass that on.
Thank you. A couple questions about 2 or 3 of the wetland flags over near WC1 200 and WC1 120. There were a couple of flags there that looked like they may have been a bit further inland. Our bylaw goes by vegetation only, not the soil. So we should take another look at that area if you could. And that there's some compost close to W2 202 flag. And we would eventually have that removed as one of the conditions.
Hi, Jen, were these all the things that you mentioned in the staff report, right?
Yep.
Okay, just double checking. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Members of the commission, any comments, questions?
None for me.
Al, I can't see you. Anything?
There we go. Yes, can you help us understand, you mentioned reliability several times. Can you give us an update on any safety systems that you're going to install at this site, since you brought it up?
Sure. So as part of this project, we're probably somewhat limited in the improvements that we'll get related to safety and reliability. But there are a few things. However, this project sets us up to replace a lot of, if not the majority of the process equipment that already exists on site. So if you think about it, we need our utility systems kind of up to par before you can go out and replace some of the more major components. We need, reliable and modern electrical equipment. This electrical building will provide the space for that. We'll be able to replace all the existing electrical components. With that comes a new modernized control system. So the current system is, vintage 1970s, utilizes pneumatic controls, which really have been out of, something that's been replaced with digital controls, probably for the last, 30 to 40 years, 30 years. The new electrical building will also house that control system and safety system. The control building itself will allow us to place our operators significantly further away from the LNG storage tank in the process area. Right now, our operators are essentially sitting within the electrical room of the building. So if there was ever a fire or a piece of equipment failed, an electrical piece of equipment failed and had, a ground fault or something that had created a significant, say, arc flash, we could potentially render the operator, incapable of, responding. And so we'd like to place our employees outside of that hazard. I think as maybe Peter brought up earlier, I think you'll see on the plan between the control building and the maintenance building, we're kind of reserving an area there. We would like to install a future firewater storage tank and pump house. It's not something that's required, but it's something we've been doing at many of our facilities, just especially the ones that are on either private wells or on municipal systems that maybe are not up to snuff to handle some of the firefighting requirements that we like to have at our sites. So we really are trying to modernize the facility with some of the newer safety standards. There's other things that we're doing, security is a big thing for us. So, this thing's incorporated in this project that'll pick up on security. Producing those 2 additional site entrances and exits are part of that, trying to limit who actually needs to go within the security fence. We have a lot of visitors to site, FedEx and UPS that don't really have the need to come into the security fence. So we like to have those deliveries take place outside, and the way we've got this arranged will allow for that. Same thing with some of the contractors that are not necessarily Eversource's contractors, but working over on the telephone or the cell phone tower. We'd like to keep them outside of our fence line if possible. There's no need for them to come inside the facility. And then there's just a modernization of technologies that over the course of time we'll be implementing at this site. Probably, I think for this site, we've got over $50 or $60 million of investment slated to just refurbish the site and bring it back up to kind of modern day standards.
Just one other question. Do you have gas monitors around the site?
We do. We have gas detection and flame detection throughout the site. Again, that is part of the system that will be replaced as part of this modernization. So I do suspect that we'll probably have to come in front of the board sometime in the future, perhaps for some of the other equipment replacements that we would do, particularly where it looks like we're within this 200-foot river front area. So I think we will have some future things. I don't want you to believe that this is the last time you'll hear from us, but this kind of sets the stage for us to come back and then start to replace those other, more major systems. We'll have those utilities available now for that.
Just the last question. How many cubic meters do you hold in the tank?
So the tank there, I think, is 1 BCF. So that's 1 billion cubic.
That's good. Yes, I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Al, how did I know you'd have questions? Any members of the public, anyone else on the commission have a comment or question? Any comments from members of the public? Seeing none. Jennifer, we got to continue this.
We do. Our next
Yep.
meetings are July 24th and August 7th. You're just about to start your stormwater review, though.
Any idea when you'd like to come back?
I guess that depends on when the peer review will be done, correct? As soon as possible?
Have you mailed him your permit, your application yet?
We
Yep.
did. Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
we actually sent that out this morning, so he should receive it in another day or so.
Okay, so it seems, and we still have to receive payment, so I mean, 1 month seems reasonable to get the review and the comments back, and it's certainly in time for you to review them as well.
So the payment for the peer review, does that go through the filing system as well?
It'll
Or,
go through that, yes.
okay, thank you.
All right, so unless you guys want another date, I'm gonna continue this to August 7th. A motion to continue to August 7th. Does that work? Okay.
Sounds good.
So, motion to continue. I lost the address.
102 Eastman.
Thank you. 102 Eastman Street to August 7th. Spady, a second. Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
ADI.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
On the next order of business of the Conservation Commission, 327 Main Street, Town of Easton, request for an ANRAD and to verify the wetland resource area.
Not letting Lee join. Sorry, Lee, I'm trying 3 times now, so hopefully that'll work. There you go. Okay.
Yep, we got Lee.
And Jennifer, is Leah on?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
No, Leah.
Oh,
Oh, here we are. Thank you.
I think that should be all of us. Wait, Jennifer.
Hey, if you want to introduce yourself and show your screen when you're ready. Thank you.
And Tom will share the screen. I'll introduce the team. Greg Join with Castle Boots Associates. We are the architects for the town on the public safety and Department of Public Works municipal project. With us tonight is Leah from our wetland scientist who will run through the plans for Washington Street. This parcel is a portion of the Stonehill property, and the town is in talks with Stonehill for a lease of this property to develop as a municipal facility. I'll turn it over to you, Leah.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Leah Basbanes, Wetlands Consulting, and I did do the wetlands delineation on the property. If you could show the plan that has the whole all of the resource areas on it at once rather than section by section.
That good, Leah?
Yeah, that one's better. If you could, yeah, zoom it in just a wee bit more. Okay, so that's good. So essentially, what I flagged on the property is vegetated wetlands per your bylaw, stream bank in vernal pool. And in the area of the vernal pool, we actually have 3 sort of overlapping resource areas. There's the vernal pool bank of the vernal pool, and the whole area is a freshwater wetland as well. So one line is sort of depicting 3 resource areas under your local bylaw. I don't know if this has been hand dug or not, but it's suspiciously different than the rest of the wetland throughout the rest of the property. The bank is quite abrupt, and then it just sort of channels into the A series wetland area there. Definitely vernal pool. There were several species of amphibians in there in various stages of development. There were some smaller ones with had no legs or tails, some which had definitive legs and tails. There was snapping turtle in there having quite a good time with all of those poor little critters. Several aquatic insects, caddisfly larvae, and water striders, water boatmen, predaceous diving beetles, etc. So there's no doubt that that area actually is a wetland. I mean, a vernal pool. The A series throughout the property defines it's a bordering vegetated wetland that has two streams sort of flowing within it. So the A series 1 through, 46 is the edge of wetland. And then to the, if my direction is right, the southeast, there is a bank to, and it's shown as an intermittent stream on the USGS map, but all streams are created and treated equally in your town. So that bank, bank 1 through 11, and then there's another section of a bank, the bank 1A through 5A. The bank on the southeast is very, very well defined. It is essentially a straight line, other side, the other way. There you go. It appears to have been either dug out or maintained very heavily to continue flow through this property. And then it abruptly makes a 90-degree turn and continues off property and heads south towards the Stonehill line. I think that's Stonehill Road that's there. Very well-defined bank. Again, it's probably 3 feet deep, about 4 to 6 feet wide uniformly through the length of it. And it did have a good flow of water going through at the time of the delineation. The bank flags 1 through A, it's a little more nebulous of an area. This is where the B1A flag is where I first started to see channelization on the eastern side of the stream. I didn't flag the west side of that bank. I didn't feel it was necessary yet. It was out of our scope of work anyway. But that is where, it's a very large wetland there, and this is where I first saw the channelization of water coming through to create an actual stream channel. And then at 5A, it essentially gets lost. So the channel there is quite short, despite what's shown on the USGS map. It may have rechannelized further off property, but I didn't get that far. As you can see in the plan, we have the 100-foot buffer zones to the bank, the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetland, the 200-foot riverfront to all of the streams, and as well as to the vernal pool. And the site is not within floodplain, it's not within the ACEC, it does not have a status for priority habitat. And so we have the buffer zones in the riverfront for those added protections for the resource areas. Again, methodology for defining the vegetative wetland was based on your bylaw of a dominance of wetland indicator species. Soils, just out of old habits die hard. I did observe soils out there, so it actually fell fairly close in line. If you were to do a soil and vegetation delineation, I would say that the vegetation line was pretty similar to that as well. But what is depicted here is the vegetative line. And the banks were defined as the first observable breaks in slope, including any little undercuts or sandbars or whatnot. The vernal pool, the confines of that essentially were the limit of water, which happened to be at bankful stage within that confined pool, which is essentially what's making the vernal pool and the bank and the wetland all be the same delineation. That's essentially it. Do you have any questions?
Sorry, I was on mute. So my question here is, Can I just get a good definition of the boundaries that we're doing an ANRAD for? I just want to be as concise about that as precise about that as we can be.
So the boundaries would be, based off the delineation, would be flag 1A through flag 46A.
Okay.
And then the vernal pool delineation, I think it's vernal pool 1 through 16.
16, yeah.
And then
1
the
through
two
16.
bank, 1 through 16, okay. And then the two bank boundaries, bank 1 through 11, and then bank 1A through 5A.
Okay. But do we have a definition for the site itself? Because typically when we do an ANRAD, we're doing an ANRAD on the entire parcel. And I know it sounds like this is something that the town's in negotiations for. We're trying to confirm a wetland bound, and I just want to make sure that we have just a clearly defined boundary of what we've delineated as opposed to the rest of this parcel.
The whole parcel is Stonehill College. We're just looking at this little portion up here.
So Ben, it is approximately 5 acres, accommodating the northwest corner of Stonehill's parcel, bordered by Main Street and Washington Street.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the bounds here that we've shown and the flagging that we've shown go a bit beyond where the parcel will actually be, where the development area will be.
The survey boundaries too.
Okay.
But you know, it's an approximate 5 acre development area here. You know, starting at the 2 streets as the bound and going inward into the site.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Jennifer, comments?
Actually, Leah answered my question about the BF1A series stream, so that was helpful, and nicely done again, Leah. That the boundary looked really good to me. I don't have any questions on the flags. And Ben, we don't normally list the flag numbers, but without a property line, we can do that this time.
Okay. I may need a little bit of help with that motion, Jennifer.
Yeah, that's what. No, yeah, you can.
Okay. We can just make a general.
Here are the boundaries as shown on the plan, and I'll write it up for you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
That stream's interesting. Any comments from members of the commission?
It's great. Good.
Any public comment on this project? Seeing none, I assume you guys would like to close the public hearing on the NRAD.
Please.
Let's do a motion to close the public hearing on the NRAD for 227 Main Street.
Crossman, second.
All right, we'll go with Crossman second. Al, you've had a couple this time, you know. Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
ADI.
All right. Motion to issue an ANRAD for 327 Main Street, and Jennifer will demarcate the flag numbers.
Benson, second.
All right, Benson with the second. Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Very good.
Thank you.
So our next order of business, I think all of you are sticking around for 524 Depot Street, another NRAD.
Correct. This was the NRAD presented at the last commission meeting. I think there's been a revision issued before that meeting that Jennifer was going to verify. No additional information from us at this time. We're happy to share a plan if people would like.
I think I'm okay.
If not, we'll turn it back to the board.
All right, Jennifer, comments?
No, I'm good with the boundary, and you have all the information you need to close.
All right, comments from members of the commission? Any public comment on this project? Seeing none, I'll do a motion to close public comment for the NRAD for 524 Depot Street.
80 second.
Spadia with the second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Speedy, aye.
All right, motion to issue an ANRAD at 524 Depot Street.
Crossman, second.
Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Speedy, aye.
Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Calling our next order of business, continued hearing and possible deliberations, 518 Washington Street. Notice of intent to construct small vestibule enclosure to the existing building.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, ready when you are.
All right, for the record, my name is Scott Rogers from JK Homeland Engineering, and with me tonight is Michael Radner from Radner Design Associates.
I think we're missing Michael. Do you want us to pull him up?
If you have questions, we'll need them, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. Ready when you are, Scott.
Okay, so we did have a review with Beta Engineering on stormwater, and we had a comment letter back in June, and we made, a round of comments. End of June, I got back from vacation, end of June, early July, and we had a small letter from Beta with 2 comments on it, and that was addressed pretty much last week. So we have a letter from Beta that basically, states that they're okay with the plans that we have so far. We also submitted a new set of plans to the town today, to Conservation Commission, and uploaded a full set of drawings as well. We also submitted a full set of civil plans and full set of landscape plans and a draft copy of the SWIP document. So I believe that we're in pretty good shape.
Jennifer, any comments?
Yeah, that's correct. We received the plans today. They were online earlier, and Beta has reviewed their project and doesn't have any further comments on the stormwater management. Scott, just want to confirm, I know we've done this already, but this is it's not recorded land, it's registered land, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so that means that we cannot do electronic signatures for this particular permit. So when it's ready, I'll have to notify you guys and need you all to come in and do an ink signature, okay?
Field trip.
Okay.
Any comments from members of the commission? All right, seeing none, any comments from members of the public? Once again, seeing none, I assume you gentlemen would like to close.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, let's do a motion to close the public hearing for 518 Washington Street.
Second.
Spadia, second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Speedy, aye.
All right, motion to issue a notice of intent and order and permits for work at 518 Washington Street.
Second.
Spadia, second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Speedy, aye.
All right, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much for your
Have a
time.
good night.
All right. Up next, request for amendment, 560 Foundry Street. Hi, Megan.
Megan?
I see Megan. Looks like Lori's joining us. Anyone else?
I believe that's it.
Okay. More than enough.
Okay. So I believe last time the GOLs were approved. So currently we're only discussing the bridge changes.
Yes.
Okay. We'll share my plan. So to start off, I have the image here of the new impacts for the bridge, just to outline a few things to make this make more sense. The gray hatch is the original footprint of the previous bridge. The triangle and dot hatch is the footprint of the new foundations, which are fully underground. The line, these lines here, this one on this side and this one on this side, is where the arch of the new bridge sets into the foundations, which you can see down here on this little profile here. So with that, the green hatch on either side is actually the portion of the arch that is underground, and the blue hatch you see on either side is the part of the arch that is exposed above the existing grade. So if we zoom in on this little profile, so the green hatch is basically everything here with the existing grade coming along this way. And then the blue hatch is the hatch at the top of this, which would be the floodplain that we're impacting above existing grade. So what we found when we went to do all the calculations for this is that we actually had enough floodplain storage already for the majority of the additional impact. Where we actually needed additional storage was in the 101 to 102 range. So with that, because obviously where we have the floodplain storage is not really a way to only do one elevation really, we ended up extending the bottommost contour, which is where the wetland replication was as well. So in turn, we also added additional wetland replication to the area. We zoom in here a little. The 100 contour went from this dashed black line to the solid black line. The edge of the original replication area went from this dashed green line to this solid green line. And then the floodplain, the 10-year floodplain went from the dashed pink line to the solid pink line. And the edge of the 100-year floodplain went from the dashed blue line to the solid blue line. And for the numbers here, you can see this was the original compensation we were required to meet. This was the additional from the new bridge impacts. And this is the total. And then this is just the comparison of what we are provided within this replication area as a total. So the previous plus the new additional compensation. And I believe it did come up last time as well as to whether this affected our heck grass at all. We did check that as one of the first things when we got the new bridge design. What we found is basically the changes were really minimal, especially considering with the location of the bridge. That's kind of the flow, the way the flow regime kind of works is as water gets close to the bridge, if you go up from an angle of the bridge, the water outside of that angle doesn't really affect the flow of it. So basically all the water coming into this replication area doesn't really contribute to the flow. It floods there, but it kind of just swirls around and stays there, which means all the additional compensation we did doesn't really affect the floodplain. The actual changes to the bridge did affect them minimally. So we have here the proposed cross-section 1099, which is this yellow one here, and 1055, which is this one here, which would be the two cross-sections just upstream of the bridge. And then this cross-section here, 1082, is the existing cross-section that exists between those two. And so what we found from there, she'll hold it up right there so it's a little easier to see, is that there there was a minimal increase in elevation, but it didn't really make an impact because we typically take the numbers to the 10th place because that's how FEMA logs everything. So in this case, and additional to that, even though this increased slightly, we're actually still below the proposed elevation of the cross section that was slightly south of the proposed cross section, and that we found that true for the second cross section as well. Whereas these are still about 103.3, and the existing cross section just downstream of that is 103.4, which would be this one here. The velocities, since our impact to the floodplain surface elevation went up slightly, the velocities in turn go down slightly in that area. So it shouldn't cause any additional impacts there. There also are still below the existing velocity there. I went through that pretty quick, so I'm happy to take questions. I think I generally covered everything on it. We did do some of these calculations within AutoCAD, but we kept all the areas on these pages just so it's easy to work back if anyone want to check it, or if we have a peer reviewer check it or anything like that. So it should be available from the numbers on this page.
So we also did response to some of the commission's questions from the last meeting. One of the questions was the lifespan of this structure compared to the concrete structure we originally proposed. At the past hearing, we had mentioned that in general there would be a 25 to 70 year lifespan of this new structure. And we went back and we referenced the longevity calculator from the NCSPA and found that under this particular condition, the bridge would have more of a lifespan of 100 years. And we ran that calculator based on 2 different pH levels. And we provided the documentation from that calculated lifespan in the package. A concrete structure generally has like a 75 to 100 year lifespan according to the CONSPAN specifications. We also wanted to note that we are not using sodium chloride. So that'll help maintain the lifespan of the structure. And so I just wanted to clarify that. There was also a question about the reason as to why the design was switched from the CONSPAN to this galvanized metal structure. And cost was one of the reasons, but there were some other reasons. Generally, the aesthetics of this bridge core, galvanized concrete steel bridge, is a preferred, aesthetic look to it. The gas, electrical, and water utilities can be run now within the subsurface of the arch, rather than hung along the bottom of the concrete span structure. That will help the aesthetics of the bridge. The replacement of the bridge core corrugated steel panels and repairs to the bridge core, to the corrugated steel structure is easier. So maintenance is easier, and it does, as mentioned before, have a longer service life than the concrete bridge. We have added plantings to the riverfront area So the riverfront area planting has expanded, as well as plantings within the wetland replication area at wetland replacement area A. Let's see. And I believe those were some of the comments and questions that the commission had last time. I think we've responded to everything. We did provide an analysis describing any potential additional impacts to resource area functions and values. And from our analysis, there really is no change to the functions and values that could have potentially been impacted under the original design. The additional flood impacts are in the same general location as the existing structure, and the expansion of the floodplain to mitigate for the loss is in the same general location as the original floodplain mitigation for the original structure. So we couldn't see any real additional impacts to any of the functions and values protected under the local bylaw or the Wetlands Protection Act.
Jennifer, any comments?
No, they both touched on all the comments or questions that you had at the last meeting. They did provide the compliance statement for each resource area, and they're providing some additional riverfront plantings as well. So I didn't have any questions. I didn't think of any additional conditions that would be needed to add to the existing order of conditions, unless the commission has some. You could approve that as a modification with just a letter.
Yeah. Questions, comments from members of the commission?
Nope. Looks like Lori has one.
I did forget to mention, so the only additional impact associated with this revised bridge design is the impact to the floodplain. There's no additional impact to riverfront area, BBW, bank. All those impact numbers stayed the same, because when we calculated our original impacts, they were calculated to the limits of work. So our limits of work are the same as the original concrete structure. So when we expanded the mitigation area, we stayed within the same footprint. I think I explained it incorrectly last time. We expanded the mitigation area and everything. We slid everything to the west. Correct me if I'm wrong, Megan. Everything got slid to the west, and there was no steepening of slopes or anything. It was just moving everything within the same impact footprint.
Essentially, this riprap slope started down here originally, and it kind of just slid up this way, and we slid the full slope this way and the basin that way as well, and kept it within the previous limit of work that we proposed.
Well, I have to say, I wasn't at the last meeting, but I watched it. This was an incredibly thorough response to this commission's questions. Thank you. Do I have to ask if there are members of the public on an amendment? I guess I will, so what does it hurt? But just a weird point of practice here. Any comments from members of the public regarding the proposed amendment?
I think it was well explained, cleared up a lot of questions I had from the last meeting. Thank you.
Amazing what a bridge engineer can add to a highly technical design issue.
I particularly like taking into account pH on longevity. That was a nice touch. Seeing no public comment here, I'll do a motion to issue the requested amendment for a revision to the bridge at 560 Founder Street.
Just as a modification without. as a
Jennifer.
modification without requiring any additional conditions to the order of conditions or permit for work.
So moved.
Second.
Spade with the second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Rossman, I.
Beatty, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
So up next is 530 and 550 Turnpike Street. Request for an amended order of conditions to revise parking and driveway access. What happened, Jennifer?
As you add them, everybody moves, and so then
There you go.
I'm not adding people who aren't supposed to. Oh, one more.
How's everybody doing? You see everybody you want here?
Scott Morrison might be the only other name.
Ecotech.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah, I think I see him there.
Oh, there he is. Okay, perfect. Well, again, for the record, my name is John O'Leary. I'm a project proponent with Rhino Capital Advisors, here to speak to you this evening on 530 Turnpike Street. We have a little presentation that we're going to share with you guys, and some plan revisions that we're looking to request and go over.
I haven't had time here, and does anyone else, or is it just me?
Sorry, is that any better?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Can you guys see the presentation here I have pulled up?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Well, with me here this evening, I have Rob Pellegrini from PK Law, Austin Chartier, our engineer of record from McKenzie Engineering Group, as well as Scott Morrison, our wetland scientist from Ecotech. So I will let Rob kick us off here.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you again. Once again, this is 530 Turnpike Street. It's about a half mile south of 106. You know it because it's under construction now. We were before you just over a year ago when we kicked off the meeting on June 6th. I think we had a planning board hearing the same night, so it was fun switching back and forth. I think you might remember us from that. We have the next hearing in August, and now the planning board just approved some changes, which John will get into shortly. This is, as you know, an 80-acre parcel of land. 49 and a half of it is wetland, and 71 acres is a rare species habitat. So we've been talking with everybody locally long before actually we began the hearings in June. And now John is just going to jump into why we're here and what we're planning to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rob. So what we're here tonight to present to you are a few plan changes that are largely a result of a tenant that we have recently executed a lease with. That tenant is Beacon Roofing Supply. Beacon is a publicly traded company and the largest distributor of roofing materials in the United States and Canada. They have over 7,000 employees in over 480 locations in all 50 states and 6 provinces. Rhino actually has a bit of a history with Beacon. This is, I want to say, the third or fourth project we've done, the third ground up development that we've done with Beacon. So we have a great working relationship with them that we've developed over the years. This facility at 530 Turnpike will replace an existing facility that Beacon operates out of, located just about a mile and a half up the road at 393 Manley Street in West Bridgewater. So approved site conditions, as Rob mentioned, we were back in front of the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board about almost exactly a year ago with a 101,000 square foot warehouse building, 8,000 square feet of which would be supporting office, 93,000 square feet of warehouse, and associated parking and loading requirements, and obviously stormwater to go along with it. So the change that occurred was, again, as I mentioned, largely tenant driven. So one aspect of Beacon's operation is customers will arrive through the passenger parking, which is the north entry that you see here, or plan east. They will enter the sales office, which occurs in the top right-hand corner of the building, and then proceed to swing around to the back to pick up materials through some of the new drive-in loading dock doors that we have proposed as part of this change. So due to the operation with customers picking up materials in the facility, it was important that there was a connection between the passenger parking area and the trailer parking and delivery entrance, such that customers didn't have to exit onto Turnpike Street and then drive around to the rear of the facility. So it was an important aspect of their design, and something that we wanted to do our best to accommodate them. So what you see here and what we're proposing is largely to accomplish that. In an effort to offset some of the impervious increase that we have proposed as part of this plan revision, we've actually reduced the overall size of our parking. So we went from 109 approved parking spaces down to, I believe the number is 85 parking spaces, which is well within what Beacon's needs are. And that has, as Rob mentioned, been reviewed and approved, conditionally approved by the planning board pending this, the outcome of this hearing. So as you might imagine, and as you might notice between the first originally approved plan and this revised plan, the roadway that we've proposed has passed directly through where our previously approved stormwater basin was. So we obviously have had to relocate that, but I will let Austin Chartier from McKenzie Engineering take over the detailed conversation as it relates to that.
Thanks, John. Yeah, Austin Chartier, McKenzie Engineering Group. So on the screen here is the approved stormwater basin location. I just wanted to quickly highlight what changed and kind of what the design parameters here were. Essentially, you know, the main design criteria was providing the 1-inch volume for TSS removal, which is required by the Easton stormwater bylaw. And then also to, of course, reduce the peak flow rates off the site as well as volumes. So the approved design did that. It provided the 1 inch of volume, and it also reduced peak flow rates and volumes. The stormwater basin in this location was only providing 2 feet of groundwater separation, which is acceptable per the stormwater handbook, but you do need to provide a mounding analysis, which we had provided. But essentially that showed that there could be a little bit of essentially mounding within the groundwater in the abutting wetland. The immediate wetland adjacent to this basin is essentially a detention basin that was built when the original property was developed. So the mounding, you know, the actual effects of that mounding it's kind of hard to interpret with a man-made embankment and stuff like that. But so either way, I guess next slide, John. So the goal here was essentially provide the same design parameters, the 1-inch volume for TSS removal, as well as reduce the peak flow rates and volumes to the wetlands. So similar to the approved design, we're gonna outlet this basin into that existing detention basin. Just it's gonna be on the south side of that basin, or planned south of the existing basin, the north side of the proposed basin. I guess one positive of relocating this is providing the 4 feet of groundwater separation that stormwater handbook recommends. So it'll get a little more treatment before entering the groundwater. Overall, we added about 10,000 square feet of impervious to the site. And we were able to keep that number low, as John mentioned, by reducing the parking spaces on the planned east side of the entrance. So that additional 10,000 square feet of impervious resulted in about a 5% increase in the size of the basin. Myself and Rhino and John Chesia of Chesia Consulting were out there in February. We had to dodge a few golf balls out there, but we got the testing done. Out there February 22nd, And then we submitted essentially a revised stormwater report to John Chesia, and we received comments on June 22nd, and we just last week submitted response to those comments. We just submitted kind of the big ticket items on the review letter. We plan to submit a full package to the commission and the peer reviewer, kind of after we get input from this public hearing. With that, I think I can turn it over to Scott Morrison of Ecotech, who can speak a little bit about the location of the basin and impacts to the resource areas.
Thanks, Austin. Scott, just for the record, Scott Morrison from Ecotech. So as you kind of expect, the proposed stormwater basin encroaches within the rare species habitat. However, as you can see with this figure here, it's all within areas that were existing disturbed. So you've got existing buildings, existing cart paths, the existing driving range facility, and lawn and landscaping. So we submitted revised plans to Fish and Wildlife, Natural Heritage Endangered Species Plant Program. They responded very quickly that there'll be no adverse impacts and that all previously approved materials shall remain in place, including the turtle protection plan, driving range restoration protocol, and the invasive species management plan that was included. You want to go to the next slide, John? So this is it was almost 9 acres that was proposed to be restored. We're encroaching a little bit for the construction of the stormwater basin, but we're still providing 8 acres of area that's currently mowed and maintained, which will be restored. We haven't changed the protocol for the number of plants and brush piles, so that will remain the same. So we're providing essentially the same habitat value. We're just kind of condensing that slightly to make up for the area where there's the encroachment of the proposed stormwater basin. So the fencing along both sides of the driving range will be removed. That constitutes a restriction of wildlife habitat, so that's still a bonus and a significant improvement that will be removed as part of this project, so that will stay. We're doing the 2-year invasive species mitigation, so we'll provide treatments in late spring, early fall for any invasives that we find within that area. The project's entirely within the Hockomock Swamp ACEC, an estimated priority habitat for 5 listed species, as we noted before. So again, in kind of conclusion, we're providing more than 8 acres of restoration area as part of this project. So a significant area that's currently maintained turf will be restored with native trees, shrubs, some brush piles to create some habitat. So it's a significant improvement. At that, I think we'll be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have at this point.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I just want to quickly jump in on one item while we're talking about the restoration. I know it was mentioned, Jennifer, in your staff comments about the timeline for when the restoration was set to occur. I just wanted to quickly touch on that while we have this slide pulled up. So we had a delay in the start of construction. I know it was referenced that this restoration work would occur between November 1st and April 1st of 2022-2023. We had a delay in construction and actually didn't begin activity on site until late April, early May. That said, during this initial site work phase of our construction, we still intend to do this restoration work. We want to get out there. We're planning to get out there in September, October timeframe. In talking with Scott and reviewing that, our new window for start of construction, it made sense and was a good planting season to get out there in September and October and do this work. So I know the order of conditions had referenced between November and April 1st, but again, unfortunately, we weren't actually active with construction and hadn't mobilized at that time. So given the shift in the construction schedule, we felt that September, October was a better planting season than, say, June, July, August, just with some of the heats and things like that. So just wanted to quickly touch on that before we turn it over to questions.
Very good. Jennifer, comments on this?
Yeah, I just have a couple, and then we'll ask John Chesia, our peer reviewer, to give us any comments if he has them at this time. But yeah, the first question was, can you give us an update on your construction schedule? So thank you for that one.
John read the room there.
I think some of the work is now within the 50-foot buffer, and we talked about needing the waiver for that. Do you know if that was submitted?
We discussed that as a team today, prior to this conversation, and we'll get that waiver submitted. Is that just revising the checklist? I wanted to make sure we understood exactly what was needed on that front.
You had a waiver the last time for the buffer zone, right? Or you didn't have one because you weren't within 50 feet?
Yeah, Austin, does that sound right? I think that,
Yeah, so I think that was the confusion. No, so on the checklist, we weren't proposing, we weren't proposing any impervious within the 0 to 50. I'll check back if we originally submitted a waiver. But so it would just be essentially the waiver per the bylaw with the revised checklist noting the waiver for the work within 0 to 50-foot buffer, correct?
You keep referring to the checklist. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. It's just the it's just a waiver. It's a fillable form. So
okay. Yeah, so we can provide that for the new work essentially. I think the confusion was what was originally submitted in this new submission.
Okay.
I think in short is we can get you that.
Yeah. And then you said you had a new letter from Natural Heritage saying the changes were okay. Do you know if you've included that in your packet as well?
I think we received that after we had filed, so we can send you a copy.
Okay.
If Natural Heritage hadn't sent you a copy directly, we can send that to you.
Yeah, I don't remember receiving one from them. So if you can include us in that, please. And then I know you're going to do a full stormwater response. And the information packet you gave was just on Friday, so I've not had time to review that. Okay, and then we'll just ask John Chesia, our consultant, if he has any comments on the stormwater.
So I did get, I mean, this project was obviously previously approved, and the changes, well, not insignificant, because moving the stormwater basin is a fairly significant change. But we did dig the test pits and looked at the ground conditions and everything prior to. So there really wasn't a lot to go over. I did look at the response today before the meeting. I actually strangely had time, which I haven't had much of in the past year or two. But so I think that from an engineering perspective, we're in pretty good shape. I can just go over a couple of things. I think that the test pits indicated some varying soil conditions, and there was some discussion in the response relative to that. And I'm not sure that I agree with the way they did their response, but by independently sort of checking it, just to cut to the chase, the soil, and I don't have the plan in front of me, so I don't know north, whatever, but let's say north is straight up on the plan view. It would be to the west. The soil was better. I think actually north is going up and down Turnpike Street, so it's the south side of the basin. So the south side of the basin had better soil, and when you get to sort of the pad by the driving range, there was a lot of fill, but when you dug through that, it was really bad material for infiltration. And what I had suggested, I thought in the field, was that probably you don't really use that for infiltration, use the other part and just use it for storage. They did in sort of a weighted number for the infiltration rate, and actually if you used the rate that I think is more appropriate for the soils out there, because they are compact glacial till. It's a sandy loam, but it's somewhat compacted. So usually with something like that, and I think they did use like about a 0.5 inches per hour for that, but the silt loam that's at the further northern end really wouldn't give you anything. And if you use the percentage of the silt loam, it's only like the top 20-30 feet of the basin. They used something that sort of covered all the test pits, but several of them aren't even in the basin. or they're just out, even just under the berm or fairly far under the berm. So I think it actually, despite the fact that I don't agree with how they got there, when I looked at it myself and redid the weighted on the areas that actually were covered, I think it'd be fine. What I would recommend, though, is that the commission, and maybe it's already a condition on the other one, but the soils should be checked after they're excavated before any backfill's placed to confirm that nothing changed, because they're pretty variable out on that site. There's a lot of fill, and I think that's something that you should require. The only other thing I found that I think needs to be edited on the plan, this could also be a condition because it's a really minor thing. The infiltration basin should have a low level drain, and the low level drain should sort of go under the low flow channel. And the detail shows it coming out the side of the inlet or the outlet control structure, where it would really be coming out the face of the outlet control structure to get into that low flow channel. I think that's a simple edit to the plan. And with those two things, that could be a condition as well. So with those two things, I mean, I don't think there's any more. For me, I don't need to, look at it anymore. If, I can look at it after that's done. That could just be conditioned, or if they do it ahead of time, it's a pretty simple thing to check those couple of items. But from the engineering perspective, I think they're in pretty good shape.
Okay. And so, Austin, is the low-level drain something that you can include in the revisions that you're going to provide anyway?
Sure, yeah, we did add a couple of things, but I can clarify exactly where that's gonna come out on the plan view and on the detail. I know what he's talking about.
Okay.
And I'm fine with, the soils were variable out there, so it's, we'll do an inspection once it's excavated.
Perfect. Any comments from members of the commission?
Okay, so it sounds like we are all in agreement. We just have to get the final packet.
Yeah.
Okay. And we should have that before the next meeting. Okay.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
Do you want this continued to the 24th?
John, that sounds good to you, right?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. We'll get the material together in pretty short order.
Okay, thank you.
So no other members of the commission had comments, right? Any comments from members of the public regarding this amendment? Surprisingly, none. Let's motion to continue the request for amendment for 530 and 550 Turnpike Street to the July 24th, 2023 meeting of the Conservation Commission.
Benson, second.
Benson, second. Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Thank you very much.
Everyone, have a nice night.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to certificates of compliance. Let's start with 18 Linden Street. Is Frank here for Linden Street?
I promoted Frank, but I'm not sure he's really here for that.
Well, I am here. I'm looking
Frank, are you here for 18 Linden though?
I am here for Linden Street.
Okay.
This is an old filing, goes all the way back to 2004. Apparently, the homeowner had forgotten that they had to obtain a certificate of compliance. They recently realized that. We have completed the as-built survey. It was noted that permanent wetland markers needed to be installed, and they did go out there and install recently the permanent wetland markers as is normally required. The only really difference I noted between the original proposed work in 2004 and what was actually done is in the back. They originally had proposed a deck. Instead of a deck, they constructed basically the exact same size brick patio. I really feel that that's an insignificant change, and that work right there is well outside of the 50-foot buffer, getting close to the 100-foot buffer anyway. I would like to see them receive their certificate of compliance at this time.
So, Frank, I think the issue that we have here is the mowing behind the wetland markers. Jen, am I right about this? I guess, how do we give a certificate of compliance in a situation where there's active mowing behind the markers?
That is something that has been going on for many, many years. I don't think there's been any real significant change. I think that was being mowed all the way back in the 2004 time. The wetlands, as I recall at that time, were delineated primarily with soils through that area. In fact, you can see mowing all up and down that area, back in that area. Now, just to the right, it's not mowed, it's a wooded area just to the right. But if you look over to the left side, which would be the westerly side, and you'll see that you got normally landscape manicured lawns going all the way down to the edge of water.
So this particular project has the wetland boundary delineated on it with the markers that are supposed to be between the wetland and the stream and the lawn. The markers were put up. The conditions specifically say not to mow the wetland area or go beyond the no disturbance zone. So mowing beyond that is a violation of the permit.
Okay, well, then they would need to cease mowing beyond the markers because the markers were put up. I actually went out there and measured and located where the markers were supposed to be placed, and they were placed right at the location of the previously delineated wetland line.
Yeah, there's no argument there, Frank. The markers are up. They say buffer zone, do not disturb, but it's mowed behind it.
So I think, other members may have different comments, but I don't have an issue with the deck being turned into a patio. It's an old permit, but I can't, just the way the permit's written, I can't give, I don't think we can issue a order of conditions, a certificate of compliance with mowing happening behind the sign that says no mowing. And I think if we just give it a couple growing seasons and he comes back and there's no mowing there, we're not gonna have a problem.
Okay.
Agreed.
I support that.
Okay, so are you just continuing until next spring, or are you denying this and then asking them to come back and file again in the spring?
I guess I'd leave that up to the applicant. Frank, does your client have a position on this? Would they like to leave it up? I mean, we're not gonna do, I don't think there's an appetite to do an enforcement action or anything like that here. I think the options are we can deny the COC and they can apply for it again, or we can continue it to a meeting in the future.
I think if the commission is agreeable for the long range continuation, I would request that. I see no reason to have it denied, close everything, and then reapply anew if it can simply be continued until next year.
I say this, but Jennifer, is that a significant administrative burden to leave something pending like that, or is it we could just pick a date and continue it on the agenda?
Someone has to keep track of that.
Okay.
So that becomes a little more difficult for staff to do that.
Okay.
I mean, it is cleaner to say you're not in compliance. You're not showing that you are in compliance. We're denying this, and you can reapply in the spring after 2 growing seasons where you've stopped mowing.
Well, now, Frank, I feel bad because I think I've offered you a path that doesn't exist.
I was gonna say in the past, but we've done similar. I'm trying to think of ones that we've done, but
yeah,
it's kind of, I don't want to go that route either because I get it, but yeah.
Okay. We can reapply then at a later date. Would the commission be agreeable to hearing this again next summer if it has not been mowed between now and next summer?
I would say yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, that would be 2 growing seasons. Yeah.
Very well.
So I guess, honestly, I'm not actually sure how to handle this.
You need to make a motion.
Alright. I guess motion to issue a certificate of compliance on 18 Linden Street.
Well, you're not issuing it.
I guess
Denied.
All right.
Denied.
All right. So a motion to deny a certificate of compliance for 18 Linden Street.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Calling the next order of business, 105 Washington Street, Edward Hutchins, Collins Civil Engineering Group.
So I promoted Peter.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for hanging in there.
Oh, good. I'm getting some work done. How would we like to do this? Do you want me to pull up an as-built or?
No, I really, from the last meeting, we were just looking for the marker to be relocated to the edge of the wetland and to stop mowing behind the marker. So similar situation where the marker has been installed correctly now, but they're still mowing the wetland area behind the marker.
Okay, I guess we'll kind of take your lead on this one. This isn't really one of the projects that I'm involved with, but I can report back to, our client and let them know where to take things from here. So I guess, is there any other discussion regarding that or?
Similar comment to what we saw before, 2 growing seasons and reapply. Everybody in agreement on that? Peter, if you don't have anything else to add, I'll make a motion.
All
right. Motion to deny the certificate of compliance for 105 Washington Street.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Thank you. Next order of business, 520 Foundry Street. Request for certificate of compliance.
So I think they're close on this. They did have, they moved the dumpsters. They cleaned up the area. They removed the compost from the wetland. The catch basin has been recently cleaned. The detention basin has not been maintained. And the broken pipe under the driveway that is got water going toward the wetland has not been addressed yet. So they're still working on it. You may want to just continue this to the next meeting and see if they make any more progress.
Peter, is that agreeable to you?
Yeah, that would be my recommendation as well. We're chipping away at the list, but a couple more things to wrap up.
Comments on this, members of the commission, before I make a motion? All right. Motion to continue the certificate of compliance at 520 Foundry Street to the next meeting of the Conservation Commission, which is July 24th, 2023.
Second.
Spady with the second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Thank you, Peter.
I think that's all I have for you.
Looks like it.
All right, enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too.
Have a good night.
Next order of business, 345 Center Street.
We do have the revised plan, and you can issue this now for just
Very good.
or only lot 1.
All right. So comments from members of the commission before I make a motion. Frank, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think if I had anything, I'll probably be working against myself.
Don't snatch defeat from the claws of victory, right? Motion to issue a certificate of compliance for lot 1 at 345 Center Street.
Benson, second.
Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Frank. All right, next order of business is 36 school. I'm losing my ability to speak as we go through this meeting. 36 School Street, request for certificate of compliance.
Yeah, all the restoration plantings are done. They're ready for a full COC.
Okay, anybody here for it?
No.
Looks like our attendance is dwindling. Any comments from members of the commission? Motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 36 School Street.
Benson, second.
Benson with the second, roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Darn it, Crossman eye. I was pitching a perfect game too.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. So that's the meeting now. On to board discussion. Reorganization of the board. So Rory could not be with us tonight. He has joined for another term, so we got him for another 3 years, but he has expressed that he does not wish to be chair anymore. This is not a coup attempt, I should add. Does anyone other than me have an interest in being chair? I should just ask that.
Don't all clamor at once.
Right? Don't everybody fight for it.
You're killing it, Ben.
Right.
Doing a great job.
Does anyone other than Mike have an interest in being vice chair?
You're also doing a great job, Mike.
Let's kill it, guys. Let's keep it going.
You've been re-promoted, Mike.
I've been back in the game. Woohoo!
So we have to do chair, vice chair, CPC, which I'm going to insist that Al remains our CPC person because
please.
we keep finding the town a lot of money by leaving him over there. And then we appoint associate members again, Jennifer. Is that something that needs its own vote?
We may want to have that discussion because we don't have any of those people here.
Okay.
Yeah, we may want to postpone that one, but you can do chair, vice chair in one motion and then
Okay.
CPC in another motion.
All right. So I'll motion. Yeah. Can I make that motion? Motion to make myself chair and Mike Spadia vice chair.
Second.
Roll call.
You can have it, Al.
I'm giving it to Benson.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman eye.
Spady, aye.
Very good.
Sorry.
Motion to appoint Al Benson to the Community Preservation Committee.
Second.
Spadia with the second. Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman eye.
Spady, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Associate members will hold on till the next meeting.
Yeah. So I won't make a motion there. We'll just move on to accept the minutes. Anybody review the minutes from 6/26/23, and have comments from either the executive session or the regular session?
Al reviewed, no comments.
Al reviewed, no comments.
In the back.
So
I
there's a
may have
motion.
some edits, but I don't think you'll be upset with them.
Okay, we'll take it. Motion to accept the minutes from the regular and executive session of June 26, 2023.
Benson, second.
Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman eye.
Spady, aye.
Wetland regulations, potential updates. Jennifer?
So this is when we have Lauren, our intern, do another presentation. But we also have Dan waiting for the executive session. So you have the choice of seeing Lauren's 10 slides and then going into executive session and announcing that you will not return, or, if you don't want to wait, we could do executive session, ask everybody to leave and then come back later.
Let's see the slides.
A little tougher that way.
Yeah, I say we continue and just finish out the agenda, then go to executive session.
And does anyone need like a 5-minute break, or you're all good?
Let's take one before we go to E-session.
Real quick, do we have the executive session link anywhere? I couldn't find the.
Couldn't either.
It has not been working, so we're just.
This is it.
Left it as this meeting, yeah.
Just want to get to that now, just in case.
Much better.
But good question, thank you.
Does eCatch stop recording? Is that how that will go?
We remove them from the meeting. Yes.
Okay, very
We
good.
stop recording, everybody has to leave except for,
Yep,
allowed to leave session.
that's fair. All right,
Okay,
so
so Lauren, you're up. Oh, I have to promote her.
I'll figure out how to remove people between here and next meeting too.
We still got a lot done in 2.5 hours. I have to say, it's very impressive. Good job, everyone.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, we can see you.
All right, awesome. I'm just gonna get right into it and share my screen.
Nice.
Okay, from beginning. Okay, so the presentation today is about the Wetlands Protection Act regulations versus the bylaw regulations. The regulations under the town of Easton's bylaw is supposed to be more stringent than the Wetlands Protection Act regulations. And we issue waivers, but waivers cannot be issued for Wetlands Protection Act regulations. And the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw both regulate resource areas to protect either wetland interests or values. Interests are for the Wetlands Protection Act and the values are what we say in our bylaw. So the Wetlands Protection Act, their interests are protection of public and private water supply, protection of groundwater supply, flood control, storm damage prevention, prevention of pollution, protection of land containing shellfish, protection of fisheries, protection of wildlife habitat. We have all the same values as the Wetlands Protection Act, but we do have added erosion and sediment control. For pollution, water is added in front of pollution, so it's water pollution. And we have added recreation, aesthetics, agriculture, and agricultural values. I do want to note that in our regulations, it had water quantity and quality in ponds, lakes, and reservoirs, wildlife, agriculture, and historic values, but they're not stated in our bylaw, so I don't think that that can stay, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah. So the first resource area we're going to be comparing is banks. So the Wetlands Protection Act regulations, the upper boundary of the bank is the first observable break in slope or the mean annual flood level, and it's whichever is lower. For performance standards, you can't cumulatively alter 10% or 50 feet, and that's whichever is less. More may be allowed if there's no adverse effects on wildlife habitat, and culverts must be 1.2 times the bank's width. For our bylaw regulations, the first observable break in slope or mean annual flood level, and for that boundary, it's whichever is higher, so that's the difference there, and it's more stringent, which is good. And our performance standards are also more stringent, so no activity or work on the bank other than maintenance, and waivers are available for that. For buffer zones, there's a 50-foot no disturb zone, 100-foot buffer zone, and if it's an ACEC, there's 200 feet of jurisdictional area. So for vegetated wetlands or bordering vegetated wetlands, so the Wetlands Protection Act only regulates bordering vegetated wetlands, so that's on creeks, rivers, streams, ponds, and lakes. And in their definition, it says are areas where soils are saturated and or inundated such that they support a predominance of wetland indicator plants. For the boundary, it's based on vegetational community, 50% or more of wetland plants, and it also has hydrology or hydric soils. So for our bylaw regulations, it regulates both bordering and isolated wetlands, vegetated wetlands. And these are areas where the topography is low and flat, where soils are annually saturated or saturated annually. And that's a bit of a difference in definition. And our boundary is different because we only go off of the vegetational community. For performance standards of vegetated wetlands, the Wetlands Protection Act is shall not destroy or impair, but in order of conditions may permit a loss up to 5,000 square feet when an area is being replaced with a similar function, and a loss of portion in less than 500 square feet. In order conditions will apply, may apply. For our regulations, it's no activity or work other than maintenance, and waivers are available. And again, with the buffer zones, we have a 50-foot no disturb, 100-foot buffer zone, and if it's an ACEC, it's 200 feet of jurisdictional area. So this resource area is land under waterways and water bodies, or water bodies and waterways. So their boundaries and definition is the same between the two. So I just want to point that out. That's why it's not in there. But for performance standards, the Wetlands Protection Act regulations are shall not remove, fill, dredge, or alter if land protects interests, cannot impair water capacity, water quality, capacity of habitat for breeding, escape cover, and food. And you can't alter more than 10% or 5,000 square feet, whichever is less of an area. But again, you may permit more altering if there's no adverse effect on wildlife habitat. And again, culverts and structures must be at least 1.2 times the bank's width. For our regulations, there's no activity or work other than maintenance. Yet again, waivers are available. I say that because you can't use a waiver for the Wetlands Protection Act regulations. And again, with the buffer zones, there's a 50-foot no disturb, 100-foot buffer zone, and if it's in an area of critical environmental concern, there's a 200-foot jurisdictional area. So this is land subject to flooding, and bordering land subject to flooding has the same definition. So for isolated land subject to flooding, the Wetlands Protection Act regulations say an area at least once a year confines standing water of a volume at least a quarter acre foot and to an average depth of at least 6 inches. Performance standards for bordering land subject to flooding, again under the Wetlands Protection Act regulations. Compensatory storage of all flood storage lost needs to, you need to replace what was lost of flood storage for the 100-year flood evaluation. Increased flows are not allowed, and it cannot impair land capacity for wildlife habitat functions. For performance standards of isolated land subject to flooding, you shall not result in flood damage from filling. It can't result in adverse effects of public and private water supply, and it can't affect like preventing a pollution, and it can't affect wildlife habitat. For isolated land subject to flooding, for our regulations, it's an area at least once a year confines of any volume of water. So as long as there's water in it of any volume, it's considered an isolated land subject to flooding. For performance standards, both bordering and isolated land subject to flooding, we don't allow any activity or work other than maintenance. Waivers are available. Buffer zones are 50 feet of no disturb in a 100-foot buffer zone for this resource area. Sorry, I don't know. It's not. Not letting me change slides. I'm sorry.
I've been there. Just give it a minute.
That's what next. Riverfront is next.
Yeah,
That's the most fun one.
yeah. Here, let's see if I can.
There we go.
Okay. Okay. So for riverfront area, these were very hard to compare because our riverfront area is a little bit hard to understand, and so is the Wetlands Protection Act riverfront. So the Wetlands Protection Act regulation just regulates perennial rivers for the boundary. It doesn't include streams, like intermittent streams. And it stops at an inlet and starts at the outlet of a lake or pond. And they also mention culverts in the riverfront area. And that expands to the width of the culvert. So, yeah. And then for our bylaw regulations, it regulates both perennial and intermittent streams. For the boundary where a river flows through a lake or pond, the riverfront area continues, and the inner boundary of the riverfront area is measured from the bank of the reservoir, lake, or pond. So from the bank, 200 feet outwards. And then for performance standards, the Wetlands Protection Act regulations, proposed work in order of conditions may apply to protect resource areas, and a practicable and sustainable equivalent economic analysis will be needed. So no significant adverse effect up to 5,000 square feet or 10%, whichever is greater. For our regulations, for both, no activity or work other than maintenance. Waivers are available. That's within the 200-foot resource area. Proposed work within the riverfront follows other areas' performance standards and alternative analysis for perennial streams. But basically, our riverfront follows like, so say if there's a buffer zone of a wetland or land underwater bodies, basically we have to follow those resource areas too. That's within the 100-foot, the 200 feet of riverfront area. And if it's in an ACEC, it's 300 feet of jurisdictional area because that's an additional 100 feet. But there's no buffer zones for the riverfront area. Intermittent streams have other and extra performance standards, which I'm not going to get into today. That's a next week issue. But those are very confusing. So these are mentioned in bylaw regulations and not in the Wetlands Protection Act. So vernal pools, it has a 100-foot no disturb, a 200-foot buffer zone, and 300 feet if it's in an ACEC. Reservoirs, lakes, and ponds, 50 feet of no disturbed, 100 feet for a buffer zone, or it could be 200 feet if it's considered a riverfront area, as we learned, if a river flows through it, it's considered a riverfront. For rivers, streams, and creeks, it's just 200 no disturb. And that's also the buffer zone. It goes off of other performance standards, so it goes off of the riverfront's performance standards. So it's possible that it can have an area of critical environmental concern, but it's not mentioned in our bylaw. For buffer zones, land extending 100 feet outward horizontally, so the inner 50 feet is no disturb, the outer 50 feet is jurisdictional area. So standards applicable to areas of critical environmental concerns. So that's just an additional 100 feet for vernal pools, banks, vegetated wetlands, riverfront, land under water, in an area of environmental areas of critical environmental concern. And then for storm management methods, areas subject to protection may be areas subject to protection may be altered for the impoundment or detention of stormwater, and no new stormwater and causing erosion in resource area is allowed. A long-term operation and maintenance plan shall be developed too for stormwater. And that's all I have. Is there any questions?
Could we get a copy of those, please?
Yeah, of course.
I think they're very helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for all your hard work putting those together.
Oh, no problem.
I will have, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, please go.
I will have questions, as I think everyone does, on our riverfront bylaw next week, certainly.
Yes, I started working on those slides today, actually. I think they're getting put together pretty well, but I was gonna ask any of you guys if there was any areas specifically you want me to focus on.
I think mine it might be a very difficult one to, I guess I'd love to know, like, the past 10 or so times that we've applied this bylaw, how we've done it, and what standards we've held applicants to. And I'd also love to compare it to how a couple other towns handle this, because I think we're balancing wanting to be a little bit more stringent than the Wetland Protection Act, but also just want it to be readable, usable, and clear without everyone having to ask Jennifer questions about it.
Yes, I
like asking Jennifer questions about it.
That's why I'm here, so.
Yeah, that's something I'll definitely look into for you guys.
I'm not sure there's like a good way to search past projects involving that, but you know, might be a little more labor intensive than it ought to be.
Yeah, but I can ask Jen if she has any resources.
I guess like my curiosity is really how often are we granting waivers, and are we granting waivers past the 10%?
Okay.
You're granting waivers every time.
Yeah. But like how big of a waiver?
Pretty much all of it. From what I've seen.
Yeah, and there are like 3 different regulations that may apply to intermittent streams, which can get really confusing. So that's something that's probably going to have to be addressed as well. So.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
So we've been laying the groundwork for the actual revisions now, right? So before you talked about climate change and some other information. Now we've compared the state law with the local bylaw. So you have a good understanding of what's the difference, what's more, it has to be more restrictive than the state law, otherwise it's not defensible and it would not be upheld if under an appeal. And so Lauren's already started going through the regs, redlining it. The next presentation, she is tackling the tough one, the riverfront area. And so we'll try to dive into that a little bit more. And she's already got almost I think the whole 10 slides ready, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, I will look into other towns though. I haven't done that. And I'm actually curious about the past couple of times and how often you guys are granting waivers and what standards you're holding them to, because there are so many standards and that you can choose from. So that's something I definitely do want to look into because I'm curious as well.
Would it be difficult, to give us a map and show the riverfront areas in the town of Easton?
I bet there's just so many, but would you want like a couple examples or would you want like just in general all the rivers? Because
I'd be interested in all the rivers, but I don't know if that's a difficult task or not, so.
Al, have you used the Mass Mapper tool?
No.
Have you seen that? So I wonder, Lauren, if it might make sense to just do a quick walkthrough on the Mass Mapper tool. So I think, Al, like that might be a great answer to your question. So there's essentially an overlaid GIS data that shows, and it's not exact.
Yeah, that would be very helpful to me. That would be very helpful.
Yeah, because I can definitely look into that. I'm not 100% sure if I can like figure out, like, I don't know.
Technically on Zoom, how to do
We
it.
wouldn't be able to do the whole town on Mass Map.
Yeah. But I can definitely look into that for you.
We could do mine or Al's backyard, you know.
That's an easy one, 0.
I have one.
All right, thanks, Lauren.
Thank you very much. Moving to chair updates. I do not have any updates. Jen, do you have updates?
I'm just gonna do these super fast. We applied for 3 CPC grants. One is for the purchase of 57R Randall Street. $37,000 is the appraised price, so that's what we're roughly what we're asking for. Another one for the sign replacement. I did a total of $70,000 with the commission contributing 10. The Ag Commission submitted a grant for Wheaton Farm Community Garden for $3,401. Sorry, the one that's just cracking me up right now.
You got to throw them off with that number.
401.
If they asked for 302, it would have killed them.
And we do have the offer letter from town council to send to the 3 or 4 property owners of 57 Randall Street. So we will be sending that out in the next day or 2.
Very good. Any pertinent, was that everything, Jen? I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just trying to get to executive session. Any pertinent item not reasonably anticipated by the chair? Anybody have anything? All right, seeing no additions, I'll do a motion to close regular session and go to, please help me out.
I think you have to open the executive session, or you have to say that you're going into executive session, announce that you will not be returning, and then you can close.
Okay, so I'll do a motion pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, 21.3 and S 21.6 to discuss strategy to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to the lease of property managed by the commission.
Benson, second.
Benson with the second. Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Rossman, aye.
Eddie, aye.
All right, now a motion to adjourn, and we will not be returning to regular session. Is that? I apologize for the clumsy nature of that motion, but I'm going to ask for a second.
Thank you.
All right, roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Rossman, aye.
Eddie, aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, and so I'm going to stop recording, and then we will have to ask ECAT to leave. Actually, I don't know if this is going to let me stop recording.
It's got to be a way to do this.
Oh, no, it's asking me to record on the cloud.
Ooh. Town of Easton.
Normally it just says stop recording.
Can you just kick out Town of Easton? Oh, no, that's not recording. Never mind.
Yeah,
Who's-
they might
yeah.
be doing it separately. Sorry, Joe, we have to remove you now.